Welcome to the Room of Lives. I'm your host, Neil. The music you just heard was made by my friend Benam. So, quite a few things have happened in my life recently. I bought a cool little motorcycle, and days after that, I tore an ACL ligament while indoor bouldering and was on crutches. Then I got better and rode my motorcycle from Austin to Houston to meet my friend. He was leaving Houston for his new academic job in Pennsylvania, and I went with him on the 3-day road trip. Then I took a bus from there to New York City, where I spent a couple of days with my friends. I was not feeling great there, so then I cut the trip short and flew back to Houston. On the motorcycle ride back to Austin, I first got stuck in mud and had to call 911 for a cop to come get me unstuck. Then after a while, I skid on some mud again and landed the motorcycle on the same knee with the torn ligament. Then I got up and somehow made it back and was back on crutches. Oh, and the motorcycle got stolen. And then when I got better, I bought another one. So after all this and some more stuff, I'm back at it on the podcast. Lap it up, folks. You never know when this abruptly ends. Okay, so Benam, who composed the intro music, is someone I met at my first 10-day silent meditation retreat. He has a degree in computer science and physics, has learned classical violin and taught it, and also teaches yoga and rock climbing. Benam has appeared in episodes 28.1 through 28.7 to talk about his life and music. And on episodes 9.1 through 9.3, we talked about the simulation theory and his relation to the Hindu idea of Maya, that the world is an illusion. A couple of days ago, Benam took me camping at Enchanted Rock, which is this geological formation some way out of Austin. Hot molten magma from deeper inside the earth has risen up and cooled into solid granite to form this smooth dome. Allegedly, the indigenous people believed that it was sacred and would not walk on top of it. Someone reported the existence of this quote-unquote enchanted rock, and the name stuck. So we were hanging out at our campsite in the gathering dark, and I started sharing with Benam an idea that has been pushing inside me for a while, just like the underground magma. And it's the idea that over the course of my life, I have traversed a path from scientific materialist skepticism towards believing more unprovable ideas that are subjective, spiritual, or even paranormal. Since I've seen both worlds and understand a bit of both perspectives, I'm bummed that they stay separate, and I would love to form bridges between them. However, for a number of reasons, it is also starting to seem as if these two kinds of knowledge/experience have certain properties due to which they naturally stay away from each other, like oil and water, which is quite fascinating in itself. I try to explain as best as I can my understanding of this. Okay, so the audio quality was not great. I was sitting farther from the phone than Benam, and on top of the ambient noise of the place, there began a louder noise of a grill hissing in the background, etc. I tried my traditional noise removal methods, no luck. So then I tried Adobe's new AI-powered noise removal for podcasts. The results are better in that it has equalized the volumes of the two speakers and removed almost all the background noise. However, it has changed my voice and accent to someone who seems older and whiter and definitely less interesting than me. And there are some wild distortions. And you'll just have to deal with it. I think if you're after the deepest truths of the universe, which we dispense regularly on this podcast, And you cannot go through a little bit of noise and distortion to access these profound truths. Then you have simply not proven yourself worthy yet, but your time may come in some other life.
What a great new podcast intro. I love that. Is it rolling? It's rolling. All right, we're rolling. We're rolling. They're hating. So basically, what I want to talk about is when I was growing up, I used to believe that like religiosity, for example, and like what I call blind belief, or like if you ask people like, oh, is there a God? A lot of people like had faith or whatever, and they would say they believe things that they could not prove or show or demonstrate to me. How that was so stupid. Actually, ever be it. So I grew up pretty kind of like rational and like whatever you would call scientific rationalism.
Sure. Well, why did you think that was stupid?
Why did I think that was stupid? Why are you like believing a thing that you cannot demonstrate is true? You know, like I guess at the time I had beliefs that were all like mostly like demonstrable, so it never made me like question my own beliefs. So I'm like, okay, this is a standard. So I think it's like pretty stupid that kind of not following a standard. So I would like willingly like get into arguments with people who come from that perspective. And basically what I'm trying to say is, so I did that scientific thing for a while, and then certain like weird stuff started to happen that shouldn't have been happening according to the criteria of that mind, which was like, okay, your beliefs are wrong, blah, blah. There are certain things that started to happen where I started to take on those beliefs that I had
an example. Can you give an example?
Yeah. What is an example? Okay. Well, I guess, okay, one good example would be, this is the example around which we were centering that discussion before. It was this energetic phenomena. There have been some recent incidents in my life where it felt like I was communicating energy with people or trees or something like that. And that energy is something that is like non-verbal, it is invisible, but it communicates like real information. This is something I would not have believed before. And this is something that I believe now. I do have a couple of other like wacky beliefs that the scientific community would not agree on, using this process of verifying what is objective truth. Yeah, the thing that I was subscribing to as the only means of knowing what is true. So now I have some of these beliefs. And the thing is, so it seems like I crossed over a bridge from one side of the river to the other. And when I was on that side, I was basically, how do you say, decrying, or what? What's that word?
Sure. Yeah.
I was basically really like rejecting all the people who were on the other side, and I have crossed over. In fact, I'm not the only person. There's so many people who are on one side of that bridge, like on the side of science, let's say, who are like completely rejecting the other side. And there are a lot of people on like the religion side who are rejecting the science side. So it's not, I'm not the only person who came up with that divide. It's like this big gulf between the two worlds. And now that I've crossed from one side to the other, I feel like, damn, it would be so cool if these two worlds could be bridged into like a greater truth. And who better than me to like take a crack at it from my perspective? Because luckily I have been on both sides. So from my personal experience, I can empathize with both sides. So I would really like to do the best possible in order to bridge this world of like scientific objectivism and whatever woo-woo subjectivism, name your religion. Um, so I was like, actually, I have this rare circumstance where I have been on both sides. A lot of absolutists on either side have only ever been on their side. But I have the experience of having been on that side and coming to this side and seeing why both are true. This is a perspective that's kind of like rare. So I wanna do it. So that's like a goal in my head, to bridge the two worlds. But as I try to do it, and as I'm seeing more clearly more and more of this subjective woo phenomena, of the kind that other people had said, oh, I can't explain to you, I can't prove it to you, I just know it's true. And I had just found that ridiculous. Now I'm starting to see why all of those claims were like true. There are some of these things that are non-communicable, that are non-reproducible. You cannot empirically do that same experiment again. The next person will not have the same experience. But I totally believe it. It's like my belief is like kind of out of my control.
So it's like it's none of those things, yet you believe it, and that's because...
I would say there are two reasons. One, I would say, is that the things that are to be believed here are not objective claims.
Yeah.
They are subjective claims. The things that are to be believed for me is that, yes, I did actually have energetic communication of information between myself and this particular girl called Olivia that I met in a Boston hostel. This is truth, by the way. So that's the only thing that needs to be believed. I don't need to... wait, what was your question again? Why do I believe it? Yeah. So that's the only thing that needs to be... I don't need to believe that that's going to happen between any two people at all times. And if you were there at the time and you said, I didn't feel any energy, I'd be like, that's true. You didn't. The only thing that needs to be believed is my subjective experience. So I'm not fighting with science to say that this is objectively true. I'm saying this is a subjective phenomenon. And it happened to me. In the same way that I can say, I listened to that music and I believe that I like it.
So what you're saying is like, even like if an experience that an individual has is not communicable, falsifiable, or like following those criteria, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, was what you're saying.
It exists for that individual.
Yeah. And you're saying that's something that before you wouldn't have believed in, and now you do, because you had experiences like that, or become aware of the experiences that you do have that.
Yeah.
Like that.
Basically, those kinds of phenomena that I had only heard other people subscribe to began happening more and more with me.
Yeah.
And basically, the thing that I'm seeing is that it's not the fault of one. In this analogy, there are like these two, like science and religion on either bank of the river. It's not the fault necessarily of either population that they cannot bridge with the other. It seems to be a rather intrinsic nature of the kind of information about the universe that I'm talking about, that it likes to stay separate. Maybe you could say to increase the tension of the drama of the cosmos. There is this apparent fracture down the middle of the universe where part of the information presents itself in one way, part of the other information presents itself in another way, and apparently conflicts.
Well, I have a question for you about the way it presents. Like, this is something that I think we talked about in the car a little bit. Is like, how like from the personal human experience, has that divide always been there?
Wait, could you ask that again? What?
Like in the way these two kinds of information present, like we now have a lot of tools, or science has a lot of tools that allow us to sort of split apart and sort from our human experiences those which can be extracted and put into the realm of science, and those that just remain within our own heads, basically. And so I'm wondering, like how intuitive or obvious is that distinction, or is it more something that like we humans who have grown up in modernity have gotten really good at distinguishing?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great question. I mean, the answer would be speculation, because you would have to know the actual history of beliefs to give a definitive and true answer to that question. But my speculation is that subjective beliefs always existed. Like from the moment that you're born to the point where you're able to have any formative thoughts about the nature of your experience, you can have certain verbal or non-verbal beliefs. For example, you could believe that that particular forest is scary for you.
Yeah.
So those are subjective beliefs. And I think subjective beliefs is just like a fundamental truth of just like being conscious and having experiences. The thing that had to evolve is objective belief, which requires like language and communication and a certain quote-unquote scientific method of going about and doing empirical investigations in the world, and then deciding on the standards of what you're going to believe and say, hey, if this pendulum swings side to side, it takes this amount of time. And the other person says, what time? It feels too long. Because that other person is like easily bored. And you're like, okay, no, that's not what I mean. Now we have to invent a watch. And so it takes about this, every time it goes back and forth, the watch hand goes this much. So you have to invent all of these things before you can arrive at a statement that can or cannot, that people may or may not objectively agree on. So it feels like a later evolution.
Yeah.
And even when that objective, that wave of objective facts start to arrive on the human psyche, they still have subjective beliefs. Like today we have objective and we have subjective. But the dogma of science sometimes is like, no, actually they're so as to the.
Well, I think that's because like probably before like what science has had to do is carve out its niche from the realm of subjective human experience. Even probably after we had language, right? Like communicability and even consistency are just as prone to like non-scientific views of the world or views of some sort of experience, right? Like you can think about like worshiping the planets and the solar system or the gods, or like the sun gods or whatever. Like those are based on certain externalities, or certain consistencies.
Yeah.
But our interpretations of them still extend into the realm of subjective experience.
Yeah.
Beyond, right? You know what I mean? So I think like, I guess like to me it's like the act of science has been carving away and out like being able to construct a reality outside of our heads that we can use a web of external relations to point at those consistencies and to point at like those.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to say a little bit more about is I was talking about how this like the subjective world and the objective world. You could use other terms for this. I'm like generally, you could say like science versus religion, or you could say the conscious versus the unconscious, or the regular versus the magic. Yeah, these two feel like they repel each other. Like that's how it starts to. Like I'm just trying to create a model for why are these two so divided. Is because I think they're kind of repulsive. Like they have certain intrinsic properties in the way that they operate that repels the other. So it's like oil and water. Their very physical nature is such that they do not want to mix. So if you investigate the nature of these sources of information, I'm starting to notice like that's what my cribbing was about. It's like, okay, if you know this truth, why can you not communicate it to me? And I never got a good answer, or what I thought was a good answer. And now I'm starting to understand some good answers for why these kinds of whatever like spiritual truths or energetic truths are not communicable. Like one of those things is, this is like sort of an intuition. I have yielded to the temptation of doing some of this like energy exchange demonstrations because my mind just fucking wants to bridge these worlds, you know. I started thinking about experiments once I had a couple of personal energy experiences to the point where I was like, I don't doubt it anymore for myself. So I'm like, okay, what kind of experiments can be designed? I was like, okay, if I'm actually able to feel the energy of a tree, then if we put a plant in a box, nothing in the other one, and you bring a proficiently energetically sensitive person in that room,
They should be able
we
to
will be able to tell with greater than 50% accuracy which one has it. So basically, to go forward on the hunch of what I think is already true and design an experiment so that it gets scientists' foot in the door. You know, if you actually publish that, people will be like, okay, now I'm interested.
Yeah, you'd be like, what is that?
Yeah, what is that? And now I'm interested. And I'm not saying it is this. I'm saying, hey, look here. Just look into it. I've been interested in like bridging that gap, but I've also started to feel certain things like these like woo phenomena, and they seem to be shy of demonstration and proof. What does shy mean? Like none of the natural laws are shy of you going in and trying to test it out. But some of these laws have to do with, I think, psychic energies and things like that. Like it depends on how you're feeling in the moment. And if you're feeling like a big white light is about to be shining on you to see if you are who you are, then you're going to kind of go back into the dark.
Your intuition is not fully online.
So, for example, in trying to do this like energy demonstrations, I noticed that I will have a harder time reaching the energy of a skeptical person. So I was like, oh, this is how this shit keeps working and keeps itself separate. You know?
Okay.
There's no real contradiction, but it's just the way that it works. Is that to the skeptic, these things will not reach. That's like, dang.
Have you still thought about trying to like construct some kind of experimental?
Yeah. Oh, the other feeling that I've got is that I should not try to demonstrate this or tell too many people or demonstrate this or something like that. I have had that feeling, and I don't know why I have that feeling. But I spoke to another friend of mine who has had similar energetic stuff happen, and I told her I feel like I shouldn't be demonstrating or trying to prove or whatever. And she said that she felt the same way, and she didn't know why she felt that. Welcome.
Dude.
So like it was like it's like this information like self-censors.
Do you think also though it's like maybe like the
Mustard? Yeah, it's in one of the buckets.
the culture we live in today feels hostile towards it?
Yeah, it feels hostile, but it is also a certain kind of truth which cares very much about the environment in which it will be used. Like, if you ask like a different kind of scientific question, which is along the lines of some objectively measurable thing, doesn't matter how many people are culturally hostile to it.
Sure.
You go in and make the measurement, you're going to measure that. Okay? But in this case, the culture being hostile to it actually snubs out the evidence of the phenomenon, because it's like the phenomenon fades back in the face of skepticism. That's what, like if you had to write down some if you have to begin to write down some laws of this alternative weird kind of energy or phenomena, if you have to characterize it in the same way that our physical natural laws have been characterized, one of those laws would be that it is sensitive to its reception.
Yeah.
Well, and it changes according to the quality of the minds which will receive it or not. That's not true for the other kind of.
And I guess when you think about it, it does make some amount of sense because, like, it's like that kind of like transference really is requiring openness from both ends, right? So even if like the act of the receiver being skeptical, the person who is like giving off the energy feel unwelcome, right? So it's like they are as an instrument, they have changed, like as the producer thing, you know. So I think it's like that. Yeah, that makes sense that it would be contingent.
Yeah, there is definitely an observer effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like,
And we have only began to touch the surface of the observer effect in physical phenomena, like in the quantum limit.
really.
But this is like this world.
Yeah.
It's like completely in that domain.
Yeah.
Where it's like the observer effect is the dominated effect today, not a limiting effect at the end of.
Yeah. Well, it's look. It's not even like it's the observation. It is the method of transference.
Yeah.
So and that can have many different qualities. How you observe. So it's like there's you're deciding
You
what
can almost say that these kinds of information that I'm talking about
is.
I think you can also count states as one of them.
Okay.
It's not like a one-way route of information just being transmitted and you're just receiving it, and it doesn't matter regardless of who it this is the thing. It's more like an interaction between the source and the sink that creates that isolation.
Indeed.
So, like faith is created not because So it is very subjective in its very nature. It's more like a willing interaction of the two, and I don't know if you can call one the source and the other the state anymore.
Yeah.
Because when you are, let's say, feeling into the energy of the tree, it's not so much that you're just standing there. No, I don't feel anything. You are willingly extending your energy tendrils, and the tree's energy tendrils needs, and you have this mission to make. So it's got this like kind of meeting, co-creation type of nature to it. Yeah. Which makes sense why just pure skepticism doesn't get it.
Yeah. And why would be
That's
like
not what it's
repellent.
meeting.
Yeah.
Right, in other words, what you can say is that when we extend ourselves towards the universe, what meets us is dependent on what we extend. If we extended physical skepticism, then the physical world makes it. If we extend like this energetic curiosity, then like energy makes it. And it's just different wavelengths of seeing the universe. If they have mass, we will be able to have a mass-related or gravity-related response field of the universe. But if we are uncharged, we will never get a picture of the charge or being.
Yeah.
So, like neutrinos sense the universe through mass, but they don't have any picture of the universe through charge.
Sure.
So, because they have to have the same thing in order for the interactive that. Yeah. I don't know. I just had the thought that I should note down a couple of these things.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, to me personally, it feels like very gratifying to be able to resolve disputes.
Yeah.
And even though it seems like the universe doesn't want me to resolve it, another part is like fucking write it down.
Well, it doesn't even sound like it's that the universe doesn't want you to resolve it. It's just that the parameters for there's a certain intrinsic incompatibility.
Yeah, but I think there is also some of that will also, because like I was saying, why do I feel like I should not demonstrate persons? Where is that feeling coming from?
Indeed.
And I don't know. So I feel that this is gonna sound.
Do you think? Well, do you think? Okay, go ahead. You go. You go.
I feel like we're like manifestations of the universe and its pattern and its laws and its will, and all this like subconscious thing like, oh, I should not do this, is an expression of like what the universe wants as we read it through it.
Sure. Do you think also that it's just like, you know, that like because it is so contingent on the energy of the other person, if you did go throughout and doing these experiments, you would just be met with a lot of skeptics and it wouldn't work.
Yeah, it's like if I keep trying to demonstrate this, the power of it will be gone, and the phenomenon will stop happening.
Or rather, like, it's like, if you're just using the objective lens, it will appear inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right. So like to the like the purely scientific observer, they're like, there's no effect here because they're not willing to allow for the subjectivity and the interaction.
Yeah. It shouldn't be that, but I also feel like my experience that it's happening, that phenomenology will also stop. Like at some point, I'll be like, oh, this is not happening.
Right here.
And that's because I made that attempt to like lay it bare on the scientist's table. And I'm getting a feeling that I should not do that. That this is not for that.
Yeah.
Where is this thing coming from? I don't know. But I've heard this similar feeling echoed by others. And this is one of the things that would cause me suspicion at that time. It's like, wow, that's very convenient. You state this random thing, completely unsubstantiated, and if I ask you to prove it, you're like, no, I don't want to. That just tells me it's just like cook something. This side is like, oh, that's exactly what it feels like. It's like, I don't want to prove it.
No, they're just
Yeah. Like in my mind, I would like to go time travel back to a younger Neil. And I know that younger Neil is going to view this current Neil as a lot of like, the fuck, really that? And I would like to meet and take young. Let's sit down. I think we can both come to the same page.
Do you think so?
I feel like it's getting hard. I think young Neil will understand. If I say, hey, are you willing to believe that when I'm saying is the truth of my experience, this is how it feels? I'm like, oh, this starts feeling like that as before.
Banging.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess like the purest, deepest skeptic would say, I believe that that's like the truth of your experience, and that ultimately, if we had more scientific knowledge, we could completely explain it with science. Is that the skeptics?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have not given up on any bit of science. I don't disbelieve in science. It depends. When you see that, it depends a little bit on what you mean or imply by science. If you mean that there is a certain method that we follow to find out what is true, I hope that current day science can become interested in expanding its method towards more subjective domains, instead of just saying none of that is true or none of that matters or it's irrelevant. And if we do that, even then I'm not sure if we will be able to explain all of that. There can be some like intrinsic mystery to certain phenomena.
Sure. But I guess like
the phenomena resist this kind of verification more than others.
Yeah, I guess like the hardliner would say though, it's like if we had sufficiently sophisticated model of your brain,
yeah,
we could just know. We would be able to look at it and see that whatever patterns correlate to whatever this is you're describing and experiencing. Oh yeah, it's this thing, and we can identify when that happens in other people's brains, and we can also identify what's happening in the skeptic's brain that's not allowing them.
This phenomenon that I'm talking about and the response, let's just take energetic response. This energy transference that was happening kind of assumes that you would be able to find its entire signature in the brain, in the neural pathway. Um, so I would say that's one of the open questions is that
Is it
if
right?
there are like different aspects of your mind-body mechanism that is engaged in this energy send receive, is it just the brain? Is it also, I don't know,
God,
you are like
vascular scan, all the other stuff.
some systems? And also, is there some quote-unquote energetic system within the body, which, there are all these books with like these chakras and things like that? Is there actually some such thing as like an energetic series of centers within the body, which do not show up in any of our physical measurement devices, but the only thing that it responds to is like energy cues. And we don't have devices today to measure that kind of energy. We know how to measure like electromagnetic energy, kinetic potential energy, but the thing that measures kinetic energy can't necessarily measure electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
The thing that measures visible light cannot measure radio waves. So what if this is some other kind of energy that we haven't heard the device to detect yet?
Yeah.
And if we start doing that, maybe we'll find different centers within the human body. Not the brain maybe, or maybe overlapping with the brain, who knows, but just a different map of where these energy centers are. And if you can make a picture of that, you might be able to say, oh, during this so-called energy and this blah, blah, energetic events, we see this stuff light up. But we didn't have a picture for it yet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you think back on like electromagnetism, even that is very new
Yeah.
to the human experience to have as a mapped out, understandable, codifiable.
Yeah. So I do kind of wonder if that energy system of the chakras, is it really like, there are these deep space photographs taken at various wavelengths. In one wavelength, you'll just see one thing. And go to radio wavelength, looking at the same data, see something else. And the thing is, just because a certain amount of space is taken up in one image by, let's say, a certain wavelength of energies, doesn't mean that it's not available for other energies also in that same location. Yeah, you just like swap out the men and you put on the different men. It's like, oh, at the same time coexistent with all of those energies and those frequencies, what this energy also stood there. So the fact that we go inside the body and we see tissue and muscle and bone doesn't preclude the existence of other things which we don't have a lens for yet. Like we know that not only is it muscle and tissue now, there is electromagnetic waves going through it from all the nearby cell phone towers or whatever. So if I were to freeze just the space over your body, it would be not just the visible things. It would also be this waves. But we would have to have a different, pair of lenses. So we used to say that there isn't these energy centers that move around with the body that are part of the body, so far invisible. But like a hologram, it occupies the same space as the physical mass. So good. And if you're into science for that, which maybe we did, engine. Like, I don't know what yoga is, but it could be something like, because of... What do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I think it's like very plausible. And really, I think it's very like easy in a like knowledge saturated world to be like not open to the idea that along the line of progress we are not at the very end or map.
Do you feel like in the description of like this belief and my attitude and whatever I've said, that I'm, like, you gotta give me your honest opinion. Do you think I'm contradicting or going against science in any way? In your opinion?
In my opinion, but no, because it's, I think like we talked about how like I think from a truly like the scientific perspective, solipsism is like actually the most like tenable position. And I think that's like what what you are trying to be aware of and open to is your actual experience. And even those parts which don't immediately map onto things that we already have, like full-blown scientific models and answers and explanations for. And I think that seems like a reasonable, and again, it doesn't seem to contradict.
Yeah. I mean, here's the other angle to it. It's like, hey man, all I see is this dream world. Apparently in a dream, there are these green creatures that come and say they have something called science. Which to some extent matches the patterns that I see, and to a different extent, it doesn't match the patterns that I experience. My experience is the primordial truth. And therefore, what do I care if these green creatures, quote-unquote, beliefs don't match mine? I don't have to believe it. It's them, and it's just a dream. Well, what is to disprove that? So, I think it depends on what becomes important to you. Also, like, if it becomes important to be like, hey, I'm just going to call truth that which I am experiencing, and it's not important for me to change these other creatures' minds. Then you just kind of stop doing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's maybe the big difference is it's like we're now at the point where it's almost like dogma to say that truth is not what you're experiencing. It's that which you can communicate, verify, blah blah, all the you know.
Yeah, I feel like I don't feel any conflicts with my scientific self when I go on this path, because I feel like science is like the honest struggles to know the truth, and that's exactly what I'm doing. The things that I seem to be rubbing up against, and will probably continue to rub up against in my scientific career, is what seems to be certain dogmas. Like whatever I would come up against where scientific people say, man, that's what this sort of saying? He said that's baloney. He said that's baloney about some other belief of mine. All right, whatever the belief that's baloney, if I continue my investigation of where it's how do they know that I am wrong? I never get a scientific answer. So that indicates to me that I'm not really rubbing up against science.
Right.
I'm rubbing up against a culture and psychology surrounding.
Yeah. Which rejects anything that isn't already in the canon.
Yeah. So I'm like, what is your scientific argument to clear about around it? And I don't get good answers. So I feel like that's the kind of staying true to science itself. Like, okay, give me a good reason.
Yeah, and I think it's more interesting to say, like, okay, well, I'm having these experiences, and like, I don't want to like ignore them because they don't really fit into my worldview.
Yeah, I actually think sometimes science requires you to rebel against scientists. And historically, that has happened again and again.
Yeah. What's that guy's book about paradigm shifts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have neither theory nor experiment.
That is interesting to like have this like not consistent phenomenon, but like like inconsistent in the sense that it like humans seem to keep having these kind of experiences, and then just to be like, yeah, there's just this. It's all in their heads. In some sort of like vague way. Yeah.
And
I think it's difficult because it's like usually when you're having those experiences, the ways to communicate about it available are ones that are couched in juxtaposition to science. said, oh, this is a religious experience. And the scientists are like, oh, well, no, we don't do that here anymore. As opposed to just being like, this is an experience and it doesn't have to, you starting from, trying to explain from first principles, wherever it is, and not latch on to the language you've already created to try and communicate those experiences is very difficult.
Caramelized onions, some buttered toast.
Podcast listeners, you can't see this, but there is a feast before us, which must be consumed.
Thanks for hanging with Benam and me in the Room of Lives. Take care. Until next time.